these uncertain times, one can take solace from the familiar. One can take solace from the dependable. What is it that we can rely on? Well, you can rely on me being here for you to thank God for, and you can rely on Konami being Konami, because Konami is Konami, and Konami is the worst. So to give you a taste of the familiar, the dependable, and the reliable, I give you an excuse for us all to shit on Konami again. This is the service I provide to you, like a first responder or a cat rescuer. I'm better than both of those things, because I talk about video games on YouTube. Cat Hero.
Yes.
Capcom is enjoying a Cap comeback lately, as the company has managed to do something seemingly far beyond the grasp of most so-called AAA video game publishers. It's managed to produce high-quality, well-crafted games that aren't stuffed to the gullet with microtransactions, mostly, and it's managed to rake in piles of cash while doing so. Even with slowing sales revenue, Capcom has recently boasted of record-breaking profits up 50.8%. While publishers and their mouthpieces would have you believe that video games are just far too expensive to simply make and sell anymore, Capcom's profitable ventures reveal that while budgets for mainstream games are indeed more bloated than they need to be, cost-saving distribution methods can offset the costs of high-end game production. For as beautiful as the Resident Evil remakes have been, as lavishly produced and mechanically deep as Devil May Cry 5 is, as huge and sprawling as Monster Hunter's become, the fact that so many of these sales are now digital without the costly need for physical production and international shipping has allowed savvy companies to keep more of their gold and jewels. See, while we're told constantly the myth that video games never raised in price despite inflation, and that's why predatory monetization is necessary, the reality is that selling games digitally represents a significant saving for every single game sold via a virtual storefront. This is in addition to all the other reasons why the $60 argument is complete bullshit. Capcom has attributed much of its money-making success to digital sales, which it calls highly profitable. And of course it is. While there are still obviously costs involved in selling games even as bleeps and bloops, which is a scientific term, there's inherently more profit in selling so many games via download. It's funny how the savings in modern game production are never brought up when we're lamenting the poor, unfortunate, multi-billion-dollar corporations, pretending they can't afford to conduct the business they literally exist only to conduct. But look at me using video games to launch into another anti-corporate screed. Let's not bash amoral, wolfish, dishonest corporations today. Let's bash just one of them. Konami. Let's bash Konami. Oh yes, please, let's.
Aiming arrows, I glide my hands along it, right?
Yes, yes, of course. Oh, very hot.
Konami is a terrible video game company. It has been for the vast majority of the past decade and remains a terrible video game company to this day, if we could even call it a video game company anymore, rather than a gambling machine manufacturer with a side gig in video games. And you know, okay, sure, Nintendo got into video games via toys and playing cards. It makes sense that a business could transition out of gaming and into one of the few industries more insidious and unscrupulous than AAA games. I mean, while some companies indulge in loot box flavored gambling mechanics, Konami has gone straight for literal, fully fledged casino games. There's something to be said for that level of intellectual honesty. But really, long before Konami started focusing predominantly on pachinko and slot machines, it was an abysmal video game publisher. I've catalogued the company's long and embarrassing history of ineptitude and ignorance in the past, to the point where my coverage's perfectly subtle catchphrase, "Fuck Konami," has turned into a veritable meme. Suffice to say, the same company that knowingly released a broken and inferior remaster of a game because it straight up lost most of the source code, and then updated the game with fixes on only one console and not the other, is the same company that was so bad at promoting and launching a game, the game's own fucking producer couldn't find a copy when he was actively looking for it. Nor could I at the time. And that was only one such example of Konami simply not announcing, marketing, or even sending copies of a brand new game to retailers. The game in question, Blades of Time, was officially announced by Konami 3 days after its launch date, and the announcement headline, per their official PR mailing, was Konami announces Blades of Time now available, me now available. Yeah, that's an actual press release that was sent to me in 2012. I only just found it again. And that's the kind of company we're talking about here. Jesus fucking Christ. From legendarily embarrassing E3 press conferences to the fucking shocking way in which they did Hideo Kojima dirty, Konami's complete lack of competence and respect for the industry has been obvious for almost 10 whole years. And it's not like the company ever improved from its pathetic behaviour in the early 2010s. Nowadays, the company has shifted focus almost entirely away from video games, which might not be such a bad thing if the company actually published good ones on the rare occasion it publishes anything at all. The only reliable, decent release from the company every year is PES, which itself often has issues with busted and shitty ports. Lately, Konami appears to be releasing one other notable non-soccer title a year, and the past 2 years have been, to put it very politely, fucking appalling. Last year we got Contra Rogue Core, a hideous-looking, mechanically unpleasant, thoroughly broken asset recycling piece of busted trash. This is that Contra game where the guns famously have a cooldown meter, bringing the concept of not shooting to a game series where shooting is literally the only point of it. Fucking gun cooldown. In Contra. I've ranted about this dozens of times for the past several months, and yet every time I think about it, I'm still so thoroughly aghast that something so distinctly anti-Contra got the Contra name bolted onto it. And the cooldowns aren't even the worst part of it. Imagine that! The year before Rogue Core, we had a game that needs no introduction. The notorious, the noxious Metal Gear Survive. Total shit. Very much like Contra, it's as if Konami went out seeking the antithesis to the franchise and got it in the form of a drab, cheap-looking, repetitive little game that exists primarily to harass the player with constant survival meters and shitty microtransactions. And in 2017, the company had nothing. Absolutely fucking nothing. Well, it had PES, so nothing. Absolutely fucking nothing. Oh wait, no, they had that Bomberman one. I didn't like it very much. What makes this heartbreaking is that Konami is sitting on some of the biggest and best properties in video game history, and it's doing one of 3 things with all of them, not counting retro re-releases. Making horrible in-name only once per year cash-in titles, absolutely fucking nothing, or using them to promote its primary interest, literal fucking gambling. It struck me that when I talk about things like slot machines, stuff to do with actual casinos, I say literally gambling. I call it literal gambling. And really I should call it something more appropriate like legally gambling. Legal gambling. Because loot boxes in video games are literally gambling. See, while we've seen no big production Castlevania game in years, we have seen a Castlevania Pachinko machine. And while Konami cancelled Silent Hills, booted its director, and tried to scrub the famous teaser game PT from bloody existence, it's been more than happy to reduce iconic horror characters to gurning mascots for not just Pachinko, but very real slot machines. And the sick thing is, that's preferable to the alternative. It's actually better for Pyramid Head to remain a weirdly screaming harbinger of lever hitting than to suffer the indignity of appearing in a Silent Hill game published by Konami today. If I had to choose between there being a Contra Pachinko game or Contra Rogue Core, I'd actually go for the Pachinko because there's more respectability in that. It's actually more virtuous at this point for a game franchise to be used to sell casino toys than to get a sequel because Konami just fucking ruins it. At least I could ignore the slot machines. I had to actually fucking play Rogue Core. In short, Konami is Konami and Konami is the worst. Oh yeah, they treat their employees like total fucking shit and throw them under the bus and try to degrade anyone in the company who dares gain influence, and they're also a front for the Yakuza.
It doesn't matter who I am. I'm here for you, James. See? I'm real!
Oh good, we're talking about Capcom again, a purveyor of actual good games. Now Capcom is still a corporation, and as such it's not terrific for anybody except its own shareholders. It's better than most AAA publishers, but that's a bar so low as to be sub to fucking Rainian, and it's so far from meaning good that it might as well still mean bad. As recently as, well, now, Capcom is promoting in-game gambling with loot boxes in Resident Evil Resistance. It's also got its own fingers in the Pachinko pie with Shin Onimusha slated for release. Apparently that's just what Japanese companies do with games they haven't touched in a while. Capcom is making very fucking excellent games though, and few of them require the ethical, psychological and financial compromise inflicted on audiences through the shadiness of many so-called AAA games. That's why Konami should stop making video games entirely and give everything it fucking has to Capcom. This is not just an arbitrary choice on my part, as two once equally prominent third-party Japanese publishers, Capcom and Konami, are easy to compare. In terms of recognition factor, if nothing else, they could be comparable in standing to America's Electronic Arts and Activision. Both have iconic franchises, each one in fact has its own illustrious survival horror series. Both have been directly contrasted over the decades by press and community members alike. Konami vs Capcom has been a popular debating point among fans for a long time, though one could argue that particular debate was put to bed the moment Konami started being Konami, i.e. the worst. While pretty much any company could do Konami's job better, Capcom is uniquely positioned to make the best of all these properties being neglected and exploited. How's that for a paradox? It not only has the talent, it has the experience with exactly the kind of games that would best reflect Konami's properties. Let's take Silent Hill for example. What better way to revitalize the series than putting it in the hands of the company behind the Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 remakes? Capcom completely reimagined these PlayStation-era games in a way that modernized the action but retained the survival horror, creating intimidating, gore-soaked environments full of zombies that are actually scary again. Gorgeous, brutal, and amazingly lit, Capcom's survival horror redos have been critically acclaimed and commercially successful, and now just think of what it could do for Silent Hill. I refuse to believe I'm alone in thinking that a Silent Hill remake in the same vein as the Resident Evil ones would be like a puppy that baths porn mags. It's just perfect. Why did my brain go for puppies bathing porn mags? What's fucking wrong with me? If any development team could do Silent Hills 1, 2, and 3 justice, it would be Capcom's in-housers. And, you know, not just a remake. A new game would be nice, just one not greenlit by Konami. An entity with standards so low it could be part of the Trump administration! Hell, if you wanted it all first-person like PT, you know which developer displayed a knack for modern first-person survival horror? Fucking Capcom, mate. You want a modernised, fast-paced, action-packed Castlevania done right to like Lords of Shadow, but good? I can't think of many studios I'd trust to do an amazing job of that than one headed by Hideaki Itsuno. I'm just saying, a Castlevania with a combat system in the same vein as Devil May Cry 5 would be fucking delightful, like a puppy bathing porn mags, and you all know it and agree with me definitely. Frogger! Bomberman. I don't have ideas for those. I mean, I'm not a game developer. I just talk on YouTube like I've got the authority to speak down to them. But at this point, I think my thesis has been proven, most notably because I said it. So, Frogger, give it to Capcom. Bomberman, give it to Capcom. What other ones are there? What else have they got? Zone of the Enders? Capcom's got a battle thing. Give it to Capcom! But what about Metal Gear Solid, I hear you ask? Okay, there's no directly comparable stealth game in Capcom's main library. Is there? Shadow of Rome? Oh, Jesus Christ, I haven't thought about that game in a million years. Yeah, half of that was a stealth game. The shittest half. But in any case, literally anybody at Capcom could do better than Metal Gear Survive. In fact, it could have done Metal Gear Survive itself better. Its experience with Dead Rising would make for a far better zombie apocalypse, while survival elements and resource management have been at the heart of Capcom's games since the 1990s. In any case, stealth mechanics are easily within Capcom's grasp and have been major parts of its horror games, plus MGS is mostly about bonkers writing and absurd characters, and, well,
I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light!
Capcom made Monster Hunter World, end of argument. It's not a game I personally like, but it's nonetheless bigger, more expansive, more ambitious, more difficult to develop than anything Konami shat out of its milky, cracked, red, raw anal aperture. To be honest, pretty much any decently sized company could do a better job than Konami. Any developer could make a better game, any publisher could sell that game better. I went with Capcom because to me it's simply the best fit, one that makes sense, and even simply sounds good when you pitch it. Capcom making all of Konami's games. It's just a good idea. But literally any significant publisher could do better than Konami, mostly because any other publisher would at least do something.
Silent Hill.
Now, of course, I say all this knowing that it won't happen. I'm armchair booking at the very best. Konami is not just going to give all of its properties away, and it's probably not going to sell any of them. It doesn't seem interested in even licensing them out. People are now talking about a Silent Hill game that is in development. I'm not holding out much hope, but who knows? These things fluctuate. A few years ago, Capcom was one of my public enemies -- You can't have more than one public enemy #1. It's the loneliest number after all. So, but it was, you know, if we're talking like top 5 public enemies, right? We've got EA, Activision, Jack the Ripper, Rumpelstiltskin, and Capcom. Things change. Maybe one day Konami will redeem itself, but I do think it has dragged itself willingly and gleefully down into the dark and the pit and the dirt and the filth. So who knows if it can climb its way back up. I feel like maybe its hands are too stained to hold money anymore. Unfortunately, more often than not, when a publisher is sitting on a property that it's done nothing with, it's just gonna sit on it. When trademarks get renewed, there's always this speculation, oh, this publisher renewed a trademark, does this mean they're making a new game? Then we don't hear about it, because they're just hoarding these titles, like Dragons on Gold. We'll do an episode on that. Now that I've stopped being happy that I just had a good idea, thank God for me. Alright.
Alright.
And I really mean it, I've stopped being happy. It's like Prophet. It's like the TV show Prophet when he's all ha 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 and then the other person goes away and then it's a lack of feeling, Justin. It's a lack of human feeling.